2 years had passed since Maya Rodriguez descended into an arena to face what the galaxy believed was its ultimate weapon. Now she stood in the same chamber, but everything else had changed beyond recognition. The arena had been converted into a research facility where scientists from dozens of species worked together on quantum studies under Wanderer's guidance. Maya, now 19 and officially the youngest Xeno-diplomat in Galactic history, was preparing for what would be her final report as a council mediator. Her acceptance to the Andromedan Collective's advanced xenobiology program meant she would soon leave for another galaxy. Entirely the first human ever to do so. The integration statistics are remarkable, she told the assembled Reformed Council, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had helped reshape galactic civilization. We now have active participation from every major species in the galaxy except 3, and even they maintain observer status. The council chamber itself demonstrated the transformation. Where the old council had been dominated by the largest and most aggressive species, the Reformed Council included representatives from civilizations that had never been allowed voices before. Crystalline beings, energy-based life forms, hive minds, and even quantum entities like Wanderer all participated as equals. The Tau Ceti Collective has officially joined as our 47th member species, Maya continued. Their bioarchitectural technology has already revolutionized habitat construction in 12 systems. The Kepler Mining Consortium is now producing 30% more resources with 60% less environmental impact thanks to their sustainable extraction methods, Counselor. Mirren's feathers rippled with pride. As one of the architects of the transformation, she had become a symbol of how former authority figures could adapt and thrive in the new system. The Medical Cooperation Program has achieved another milestone, Dr. Kethmora reported. We've successfully treated the genetic plague that had afflicted the Centauri populations for over 3 centuries. The cure was developed using combined research from 7 different species. And the cultural exchange programs? Asked Tivala, the newly elected representative from the Silicon Valley worlds, a name that honored the human colony that had helped establish the first interspecies university. Maya consulted her advanced scanner, now upgraded with technology that represented a fusion of human engineering, Andromedan quantum manipulation, and contributions from dozens of other species. Beyond all projections, we have over 10,000 students enrolled in interspecies exchange programs. Art, literature, music, and philosophy are being shared across species barriers for the first time in galactic history. The cultural renaissance is measurable in quantitative terms. Creativity indices are up 400% across all participating civilizations, but the most significant change was visible through the chamber's viewports. The space around Council Station Omega bustled with activity. Ships from every corner of the galaxy arrived daily, carrying not weapons or tributes but researchers, artists, traders, and diplomats. The station had grown from a fortress of fear into a hub of cooperation. The quantum beacon is ready for its final test, Wanderer announced. His voice now transmitted through quantum resonators built into the chamber itself. Today, for the first time in 10,000 years, I will speak with my home galaxy. The chamber fell silent. This moment represented more than just Wanderer's liberation. It was the galaxy's introduction to its neighbors. How Andromeda responded to the news of the transformation would determine whether the changes were sustainable or merely temporary. Maya found herself holding her breath as Wanderer initiated the quantum transmission. The beacon's energy signature was detectable throughout the station, a harmonic resonance that seemed to vibrate through the very fabric of space-time. Minutes passed. Then, impossibly, a response came through, not as sound but as quantum fluctuations that Wanderer translated for the assembled council. "Greetings, Wanderer between stars," the message began. "Your signal has been eagerly awaited. The collective has monitored quantum disturbances from your galaxy with growing concern. What can you report?" Wanderer's response was formal but clearly emotional. "Greetings, honored colleagues. I am pleased to report successful contact and cultural exchange with the sapient species of this galaxy. Initial diplomatic challenges have been resolved through collaborative effort. Elaborate on these diplomatic challenges, please." Maya stepped forward, her scanner ready to translate human speech into quantum harmonics. "This is Maya Rodriguez of Earth, authorized to speak for the Reformed Galactic Council. The situation here was complicated. Over the next hour, Maya and Wanderer jointly explained the transformation, the old council's authoritarian system, Wanderer's imprisonment, the ancient judgment, and the revolutionary changes that followed. The response from Andromeda was measured but clearly interested. This pattern of governmental evolution is unusual, the Andromedan voice noted. Typically, such transformation requires multiple generations. Your species, Maya Rodriguez of Earth, appears to have catalyzed accelerated social development. Humans do seem to have a talent for stirring things up, Maya admitted with a grin that carried across species barriers. But the real credit belongs to everyone who chose cooperation over conflict. The collective is intrigued by these developments. We propose formal diplomatic contact and cultural exchange between our galaxies. The implications hit everyone in the chamber simultaneously. Intergalactic diplomacy, knowledge exchange on a scale never before imagined. The possibility of learning from civilizations that had solved problems the Milky Way was still struggling with. On behalf of the reformed Galactic Council, Maya said formally, we enthusiastically accept your proposal. As the quantum transmission ended, the chamber erupted in celebration. Species-specific expressions of joy created a symphony of sounds, lights, and harmonic frequencies that spoke to the unity underlying their diversity. Later, as the formal sessions ended, Maya found herself alone with Wanderer in the converted research facility. The quantum being was making final adjustments to equipment that would allow regular communication with Andromeda. You know, Maya said, when I volunteered for this, I thought I'd be dead within minutes. I never imagined I'd end up helping to establish diplomatic relations between galaxies. Destiny often disguises itself as coincidence, Wanderer replied philosophically. Your species sent you to die, but you chose to live. The galaxy is transformed because one young human decided to make friends instead of making war. Maya looked out at the bustling space traffic beyond the facility walls. Ships, stations, and research platforms created a constellation of lights that represented the new galactic civilization. One built on cooperation, curiosity, and the radical idea that differences were strengths rather than threats. What do you think will happen next? She asked. The universe is vast, Maya Rodriguez. There are hundreds of galaxies, thousands of unique civilizations, millions of species we have yet to meet. The transformation that began here will spread, because cooperation is stronger than domination, curiosity is more powerful than fear, and friendship conquers more worlds than force ever could. Maya smiled, already anticipating her journey to Andromeda and the wonders that awaited discovery. The girl who had been sacrificed to a monster had become a bridge between worlds, proving once again that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or their technology, it was in their stubborn refusal to see enemies where they could make friends instead. She prepared for the next phase of her journey. Maya knew that the story was far from over. The galaxy had learned to dream of possibilities instead of fearing differences, and dreams, as any human could tell you, had a way of becoming reality. 6 months after the ancient judgment that changed everything, the Galactic Council chambers bore little resemblance to their former incarnation. The imposing throne-like seats had been replaced with a circular arrangement that put all species on equal footing. Where once the walls had displayed weapons and symbols of conquest, they now showed collaborative achievements and joint scientific discoveries. Maya stood at the central podium, no longer the nervous teenager who had descended into the arena. Months of working alongside beings from dozens of worlds had given her confidence that transcended her years. Her scanner had been upgraded with quantum translation protocols developed jointly by human, Andromedan, and Council scientists. The quarterly cooperation index shows continued improvement across all sectors, she reported to the assembled delegates. Trade disputes are down 60% from pre-transformation levels. Scientific collaboration projects have increased by 400%. And we've had 0 military conflicts between Council member species for the first time in recorded history. Applause, chittering, harmonic resonance, and various other expressions of approval filled the chamber. The transformation hadn't been without challenges, but the results spoke for themselves. Councillor Mirin, now serving as the elected representative from the Aviani delegation, rather than a lifetime appointee, preened her feathers with satisfaction. The agricultural exchange program alone has increased food production across 17 systems. Species that were struggling with resource scarcity are now thriving. The Medical Cooperation Initiative has been equally successful, added Dr. Kethmora, a crystalline being who had joined the Reformed Council as Minister of Interspecies Health. Sharing biological data across species barriers has led to treatments for diseases that plagued civilizations for millennia. But the most dramatic change was barely visible to most observers. In a quantum-shielded facility adjacent to the council chambers, Wanderer Between Stars worked on his beacon array. The massive construction project had become a symbol of the new galactic cooperation, with dozens of species contributing materials, expertise, and labor. Maya excused herself from the council session and made her way to the beacon facility. The sight that greeted her never failed to inspire awe. Wanderer's true size was more apparent here, in a space designed to accommodate his massive form. He was currently manipulating quantum fields to align crystalline matrices provided by Vexthan's people, while teams of engineers from various species monitored the energy flows. "How's the progress?" Maya asked, approaching the work area. "Excellent." Wanderer's quantum voice resonated with satisfaction. "The beacon will be ready for initial transmission within days. My colleagues in Andromeda will finally learn that I survived the journey. And they'll learn about the changes here?" "Indeed. The transformation of this galaxy's governing structure will be of great interest to the collective. Such rapid, peaceful evolution is rare in galactic politics." Maya consulted her upgraded scanner, reviewing the day's reports. "Speaking of evolution, I have some interesting news. The Zephyrian Confederation officially petitioned to join the Reformed Council today." Wanderer's massive head turned toward her. The Zephyrians were among the most isolationist species in the galaxy. "This is significant. It gets better. They're offering to share their atmospheric engineering technology in exchange for medical research collaboration. 3 more systems could become habitable within a century if their terraforming techniques work on a larger scale." "The old council would never have allowed such cooperation," Wanderer observed. "They preferred to keep species dependent rather than self-sufficient." Maya nodded grimly. "Ambassador Chen sent me the latest intelligence reports from Earth. We've identified at least 37 species that were deliberately kept from achieving advanced technological development by the old council. They're all showing remarkable progress now that the restrictions have been lifted. The transformation hadn't been universally welcomed. Several species had initially resisted the changes, clinging to the old hierarchical system that had favored them, but as the benefits of cooperation became apparent, resistance had largely melted away. Only a handful of truly authoritarian regimes remained outside the Reformed Council, and even they were beginning to show interest in the prosperity their neighbors were achieving. "There is something else," Wanderer said, his quantum voice carrying a note of anticipation. "The beacon construction has revealed interesting data about your species, Maya Rodriguez of Earth." Maya looked up from her scanner with curiosity. "What kind of data?" "Humans show trace quantum sensitivity. Not enough for conscious manipulation, but sufficient for enhanced intuitive understanding of quantum-based life forms. It explains why you were able to communicate with me so readily when others could not." Maya blinked in surprise. "Are you saying humans are naturally good at talking to quantum beings?" "Among other things. Your species' tendency toward empathy, combined with quantum sensitivity, makes you natural mediators for species with exotic physical properties. This is quite rare in galactic development patterns. So when humanity sent me instead of a warrior, they sent exactly the right person for the situation, whether they realized it or not. Human intuition appears to be more sophisticated than your science currently understands." Maya grinned. "Wait until I tell Ambassador Chen. She'll love knowing that our diplomatic failure was actually a diplomatic innovation." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime from Maya's scanner. She checked the display and felt her excitement spike. "Wanderer, the Council just received a priority transmission from the Tau Ceti system. First contact with a new species, and they're specifically requesting human mediators for the initial negotiations. Already the galaxy adapts to new realities," Wanderer noted with approval. "Your species' reputation as bridge builders spreads quickly." Maya was already heading for the door. "I need to get back to the Council chambers. This could be huge, the first truly voluntary first contact since the transformation." "Go," Wanderer encouraged. "I will continue here. The beacon approaches completion, and soon I will be able to share news of these changes with my own people." As Maya hurried through the station corridors, Her mind raced with possibilities. A new species choosing to make contact, specifically requesting human involvement, suggested that word of the transformation was spreading beyond the Council's traditional sphere of influence. The galaxy was becoming a place where exploration and cooperation were valued over conquest and control. She paused at an observation window that looked out into space, where construction crews from a dozen species were building new diplomatic facilities. In the distance, human ships worked alongside vessels from species that had been enemies just months before. The old galaxy had been ruled by fear. The new one was being built on hope, and somehow, a 17-year-old girl with a scanner and an unlimited curiosity about alien life had helped make it possible. Maya smiled and continued toward the council chambers. She had a new species to welcome to the galaxy. The Galactic Council had faced many crises over their 10,000-year reign, but none quite like this. Emergency sessions stretched for days as they grappled with a truth that threatened to unravel the very foundation of their authority. The being they had used to terrorize emerging species for millennia was not only innocent but represented a potential intergalactic incident of unprecedented scope. Maya had been granted temporary quarters on the station, though she spent most of her time in the arena with Wanderer. Her scanner had become the primary communication link between the quantum being and the increasingly desperate council members who visited to negotiate. The apology is non-negotiable, Maya stated firmly as Ambassador Zethkari slithered into the arena for his third attempt at bargaining. Wanderer has been imprisoned and tortured for over 10,000 years. The least you can do is acknowledge the crime. You don't understand the political implications, Zethkari hissed. If the council formally apologizes, it admits to the wrongful imprisonment of a diplomatic representative. Every species in the galaxy will question our authority. There will be rebellion, chaos. Good, Maya interrupted. Maybe there should be. Maybe a system built on fear and intimidation deserves to be questioned. Wanderer's deep voice resonated through the scanner. The young human speaks truth, Zethkari of the Serpent Worlds. Your authority was never legitimate if it required deception to maintain. But the alternative, Maya said, consulting her scanner's display, is 12 quantum-capable warships arriving from Andromeda to investigate why their ambassador never came home. Ships that, according to Wanderer, are equipped with technology that makes his abilities look like party tricks. Zethkari's 6 eyes dilated with fear. Surely there must be some compromise, some way to resolve this without admitting guilt. Maya exchanged a look with Wanderer, or at least looked in his direction, since the massive being's expressions were difficult to read. They had spent hours discussing this exact scenario. Actually, Maya said slowly, there might be, but it would require the council to do something they've never done before. What? Tell the complete truth. Not just apologize for the mistake, but explain why it happened. Admit that the old system was based on fear rather than wisdom. Show the galaxy that the council is capable of growth and change. Wanderer's quantum voice carried a note of approval. Transformation rather than destruction. An interesting proposition. Zethkari's serpentine form coiled tighter. You're asking us to abandon everything we are. We're asking you to become something better, Maya replied. Look, humanity's only been in space for a few centuries, but we've learned something important. The strongest leaders aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who can admit when they're wrong and fix it. Over the following days, Maya found herself serving as an unlikely mediator between Wanderer and increasingly desperate council delegations. Her youth, which had initially been seen as an insult, became an unexpected advantage. She could speak truths that diplomatic adults might have softened, and ask questions that exposed the fundamental flaws in the council's reasoning. The problem, Maya explained to Councillor Vexthan during one particularly tense session, is that you've built your entire governmental structure around a lie. You've told everyone that might makes right, that superior force justifies authority, but Wanderer's existence proves that's not true. Vexthan's crystalline form pulsed with agitated light. How so? He's had the might to destroy you all for 10,000 years, but he chose not to. That's not weakness. That's the kind of strength that comes from wisdom and compassion, the very qualities you claim to represent but have never actually practiced. The quantum being chose imprisonment over violence, Vexthan admitted reluctantly. This suggests alternative approaches to conflict resolution. Exactly, And that's what the galaxy really needs. Not a council that rules through fear, but one that leads through example. Show other species that cooperation is stronger than domination. Wanderer's deep voice added weight to her words. In Andromeda, our most successful civilizations are those that embrace collaborative governance. Single-species domination is considered a developmental phase that mature societies outgrow. The breakthrough came during a session with Counselor Mirren, whose avian nature made her more receptive to new ideas than her reptilian and crystalline colleagues. What you're proposing, Mirren said carefully, is essentially the dissolution of the current council structure and the creation of something entirely new. Not dissolution, Maya corrected. Evolution. Keep the parts that work. The trade regulation, the conflict mediation, the technology sharing. But change the underlying philosophy from obey or be punished to cooperate and prosper. The ancient judgment would be abolished, Mirren noted. Well, obviously, you can't exactly keep feeding people to Wanderer now that everyone knows. He's a diplomatic ambassador who's been trying to go home for 10 millennia. Wanderer's quantum laughter was a sound like distant thunder. I confess I would prefer to resume my research rather than continue my unwilling career as a judicial executioner. But what about species that refuse to cooperate? Mirren asked. Some civilizations only respond to strength. Maya considered this seriously. Then you help them understand why cooperation is better. Not through threats, but through benefits. Make it more profitable to work together than to fight. And if that doesn't work, she gestured toward Wanderer, you've got a quantum physicist from another galaxy who's willing to share his knowledge. Think of the technological advances that could come from voluntary cooperation instead of forced compliance. The human child proposes transformation through education rather than intimidation, Wanderer observed. This aligns with Andromedan diplomatic philosophy. Mirren's feathers ruffled with excitement. The knowledge exchange possibilities alone would justify the transition. Access to intergalactic science, quantum manipulation techniques, advanced energy production. But first, Maya said firmly, the apology, public acknowledgement of what was done wrong, and a commitment to do better. No more half measures or face-saving compromises. That evening, as Maya sat in the arena reviewing her notes, Wanderer lowered his massive head closer to her position. You have accomplished something remarkable, small wise one. In days you have begun to undo damage that took millennia to create. Maya looked up at the quantum being with a mixture of pride and exhaustion. I had a good teacher, and a friend who trusted me enough to let me try. The council will agree to our terms, Wanderer predicted. They have calculated the alternatives and found them unacceptable. And then you'll go home, eventually. But first I believe I will accept the council's offer to serve as a scientific advisor during their transition period. There is much work to be done and many wrongs to be corrected. Maya smiled. I think I'd like to help with that if they'll let me. After all, I did come here to study xenobiology. This seems like the ultimate field research opportunity. Wanderer's quantum voice carried warmth that transcended species barriers. I believe, Maya Rodriguez of Earth, that you and your people will find the transformed galaxy much more welcoming than the one your species first encountered. We usually do better with friends than with enemies, Maya agreed. It's kind of our thing. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the station's highest chamber, as far from the arena as possible. But distance provided no comfort when Wanderer between stars could be heard speaking through Maya's scanner, even from thousands of meters away. His quantum-bonded voice seemed to resonate through the station's very structure. Maya sat in the center of the chamber, her small scanner placed on the speaker's podium. Through it, Wanderer's translated voice addressed the assembled council with formal precision that spoke of vast intelligence and painful experience. Honored council, Wanderer began, his tone carrying just enough irony to make several members shift uncomfortably. I appreciate this opportunity to finally present my testimony after 10,743 years of imprisonment. Zethkari slithered forward, his serpentine form coiled with barely contained agitation. You are no prisoner. You are the devourer of worlds, the ancient guardian of justice, I am a xenobiologist, Wanderer interrupted calmly. My true designation translates approximately to student of life between worlds. I came to your galaxy on a research mission, seeking to understand the evolutionary paths of quantum-aware species. Counselor Mirren's feathers rippled with confusion. Quantum-aware species. Maya looked up from her scanner's display. He means species that can manipulate quantum fields naturally. It's an evolutionary adaptation that only develops under very specific conditions. In our galaxy, there are currently 3 species with quantum awareness. In Andromeda, apparently it's more common. 12% of sapient species in my home galaxy possess some degree of quantum sensitivity, Wanderer confirmed. Your galaxy shows much lower development, which made it scientifically fascinating. I came to study, to learn, to eventually return home with new understanding. But that's not what happened, Maya said quietly. No. I was greeted not with curiosity but with fear. My quantum-bonded nature made conventional weapons ineffective against me. Rather than attempting communication, your early council members assumed I was a threat to be contained. Vexthon's crystalline form pulsed with defensive light. The historical records clearly state that you attacked first. You destroyed 3 council ships and I defended myself when fired upon, Wanderer corrected. Your records omit that I broadcast peace intentions on 47 different frequencies before your ships opened fire. They also omit that I carefully disabled rather than destroyed those vessels, and that I used non-lethal force to subdue attackers. Maya was taking notes on her scanner, cross-referencing Wanderer's statements with the historical data the Council had provided. The energy signatures match, she announced. His quantum field manipulations were precisely calibrated to disable ship systems without harming the crews. That level of precision would be impossible if he were simply attacking mindlessly. The early council was more interested in acquiring a weapon than in establishing communication, Wanderer continued. They discovered that while their technology could not harm me, they could create environmental conditions that would weaken me over time. Hunger, sensory deprivation, quantum dampening fields that caused constant discomfort. They tortured you, Maya said, her young voice carrying an edge of steel that made several council members flinch. They found ways to ensure my compliance without understanding what they were compelling me to do. When they began bringing me other sapient beings, I believed initially that these were diplomats, potential friends who might help establish proper communication. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. But they came with weapons. They came with fear. They attacked immediately, giving me no choice but to defend myself. After the first few incidents, I realized what was actually happening. Counselor Mirren spoke hesitantly. You realized you were being used as an executioner. I realized I was trapped in a cycle designed to perpetuate itself. If I killed the champions sent to me, I confirmed the Council's narrative about my nature. If I refused to defend myself and allowed them to harm me, well, that would only have resulted in my death and the Council finding a new method of control. Maya looked up at the assembled aliens with growing disgust, so he chose a third option. He defended himself minimally, keeping the champions from harming him while allowing the Council to maintain their illusion of control. He became their willing prisoner to prevent a war between his quantum abilities and their conventional technology. A war that would have devastated multiple systems, Wanderer confirmed. My defensive capabilities, when fully utilized, can destabilize local spacetime. I chose captivity to prevent casualties. Sethkari's voice carried desperate authority. Even if this is true, it changes nothing. The ancient judgment has maintained galactic order for millennia. It has prevented countless conflicts, established clear hierarchies. It has prevented growth, Maya interrupted. You've spent 10,000 years terrifying emerging species instead of helping them develop. You've stagnated technological advancement by making everyone afraid to innovate beyond your approved parameters. You've created a galaxy of followers instead of partners. She stood up, her teenage frame somehow commanding the vast chamber's attention. And worst of all, you've taken a brilliant scientist from another galaxy, someone who came here to learn and share knowledge, and turned him into your personal monster. You've committed the greatest act of scientific vandalism in galactic history. The human child speaks wisdom, Wanderer said, his quantum voice resonating with approval. But she understates the situation. I am not merely a scientist from Andromeda. I am one of 12 ambassadors sent by the Andromedan Collective to establish contact with your galaxy. The implications hit the Council like a meteor strike. Vexthon's crystalline form began pulsing rapidly with stress patterns. Ambassadors. It means they're waiting for me to report back, Wanderer confirmed. My mission was scheduled to last 50 of your years. I have been overdue for return by approximately 10,000 years. The collective has been monitoring quantum fluctuations from this galaxy for millennia, waiting for my signal. Maya consulted her scanner, her face growing pale as she processed the data. Wanderer, what happens if you don't report back soon? Standard protocol would be to send a rescue mission. 12 quantum-capable vessels with full exploration crews. If they encounter the same hostility I did. He paused, allowing the council to imagine the consequences. The collective does not share my pacifist philosophy. They would consider my imprisonment an act of war. Zethkari's serpentine form had gone rigid with terror. A war between galaxies. Could be avoided, Maya said firmly, if we fix this situation right now. Wanderer, what would you need to send an all-clear signal to your people? Freedom to construct a quantum beacon, access to specific rare elements for the transmission array, and... He paused meaningfully. A formal apology from the Galactic Council, acknowledging their error and guaranteeing safe passage for future Andromedan missions. The chamber erupted into desperate whispers as council members frantically calculated the costs of intergalactic war versus the blow to their authority that such an apology would represent. Maya smiled and activated her scanner's recording function. I think we're about to witness some very interesting negotiations. Panic spread through the viewing platforms like wildfire. Aliens who had moments before been placing casual bets on Maya's destruction were now scrambling for the exits. The Devourer's 6 eyes tracked their movement with predatory focus, but it made no move to pursue. Instead, it lowered its massive head toward Maya again. They're scared, Maya observed, watching the chaos above. They should be. You could break out of here anytime you wanted, couldn't you? You've been choosing to stay. The Devourer's response was a low rumble that Maya felt in her bones rather than heard with her ears. Her scanner translated the vibration into complex harmonic patterns. Not random sounds, but structured communication. You're speaking, she breathed. Of course you are. Hold on, let me adjust the frequency parameters. Her fingers flew over the scanner's controls, modifying its translation protocols. After a few moments, the device began converting the Devourer's rumbles into synthesized speech. Waiting. The voice was deep, layered with harmonics that suggested vast intelligence. Waiting for someone who would listen? Maya's eyes widened. How long have you been able to speak? Always, they never asked. They only commanded. In the viewing platforms, Ambassador Zethkari was screaming into his communicator, demanding immediate military backup. Counselor Vexthon's crystalline form was pulsing with agitated light patterns, while Counselor Mirren had pressed herself against the far wall, her feathers flat with terror. The others, Maya said urgently, the ones they fed to you over the centuries, did you try to speak to them? The Devourer's eyes dimmed with what could only be sorrow. All came to fight. All came with weapons, with anger, with fear. None came with questions. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the arena's temperature. So you had to defend yourself, had to survive, had to wait. Knew someday someone would come who could see. See what? The Devourer lifted its massive head toward the arena ceiling, where ancient symbols were carved into the metal. Maya followed its gaze and activated her scanner's image analysis function. The symbols began to resolve into meaningful patterns. These aren't decorative, she realized. They're star charts. Navigation data. This isn't an arena at all, is it? Home, the Devourer confirmed. Ship, prison, tomb. Maya's scanner finished analyzing the symbols, and the truth hit her like a physical blow. You're not from this galaxy at all. These coordinates, they're pointing to somewhere beyond the galactic rim. You're not just a refugee, you're an explorer. A traveler from another galaxy entirely. The Devourer's 6 eyes focused on her with renewed intensity. Came to learn. Came to meet new minds. Instead found fear. Found cages. Found endless hunger for control. Above them, emergency klaxons were blaring as Council security forces poured into the viewing areas. Energy weapons powered up, their charging whines echoing through the arena. But the Devourer showed no concern for the threat they represented. They can't hurt you, Maya realized. Those weapons, they're designed for normal matter, aren't they? But you're not entirely normal matter. Quantum bonded, the Devourer confirmed. Energy weapons pass through. Projectiles dissolve. Only hunger can harm me and only kindness can heal. Maya looked up at the assembled security forces with new understanding. That's why you've never tried to escape. It's not just that you're waiting for someone to listen. It's that their weapons literally can't stop you, and you know if you break free violently, they'll just find another way to trap you. They would learn. They would adapt. They would create new prisons, new weapons. Better to wait for understanding than to teach them to fear me more. The implication staggered Maya. For millennia, the Galactic Council had maintained their authority through what they believed was their ultimate weapon. In reality, they'd been keeping a prisoner who could have destroyed them all at any moment, but chose not to out of wisdom and compassion that the Council couldn't even recognize. But now I'm here, Maya said, and I can tell them the truth. I can make them understand what they've done. Truth alone will not free me, the Devourer replied sadly. They are too invested in their power, their fear. They will find ways to dismiss truth, to maintain their control. Maya considered this, her mind racing through possibilities. Around them, the security forces were setting up containment fields and calling for heavier weapons. None of it would work, but they didn't know that yet. Then we don't just tell them the truth, Maya decided. We show them consequences, but not violent ones. Something that will make them understand without anyone getting hurt. What do you propose, small wise one? Maya smiled, and for the first time since entering the arena, she looked like the teenager she actually was. Brilliant, determined, and completely unafraid of authority. I propose we give them exactly what they've always claimed they wanted. Order, control, perfect, absolute authority. She activated her scanner's communication array and broadcast on an open frequency that would reach every device in the station. Attention Council Station Omega. This is Maya Rodriguez, Human Champion. I formally request to address the Galactic Council under the ancient judgment protocols. Zethkari's voice crackled back through the speakers. The judgment is complete, human. You have failed. Your species... Actually, Maya interrupted cheerfully, I haven't failed anything. The ancient judgment states that the champion must face the Devourer of Worlds. It doesn't specify the outcome. I faced him, we've had a lovely conversation, and now I'd like to discuss terms. Terms? Counselor Vexton's crystalline voice rang with disbelief. You are in no position to negotiate terms, child. Maya looked up at the Devourer, who was watching the exchange with what she was learning to recognize as amusement. Actually, I think I'm in the strongest negotiating position anyone's had in this station for the past 10,000 years. Because unlike all those champions before me, I made a friend instead of a fight. The Devourer's low rumble of agreement made the entire station vibrate. And my friend has some very interesting things to tell you about your ancient judgment. Things about galactic law, about rights of sapient beings, and about what happens when a civilization commits what my species calls crimes against personhood. For several millennia. For the first time since the whole ordeal began, the council viewing platforms fell completely silent. Maya's smile widened. I think it's time for a proper introduction. Council, meet Wanderer Between Stars, quantum explorer from the Andromeda Galaxy and unwilling prisoner of war. Wanderer, meet the beings who've been using you as their personal boogeyman for longer than some of their species have existed. The Devourer, Wanderer, lifted his massive head toward the viewing platforms. When he spoke through Maya's scanner, his voice carried the weight of eons and the promise of justice long delayed. We need to talk. The arena of final judgment existed in the station's lowest level, carved directly into the dead star's surface. Ancient metal walls rose hundreds of meters high, scarred by millennia of battles. Viewing platforms circled the enormous space, allowing the council and visiting dignitaries to observe from safety. Today those platforms were packed with representatives from dozens of species, all eager to witness humanity's humiliation. Maya descended into the arena via a simple transport platform, still carrying her backpack and looking around with that same bright curiosity. The arena floor was littered with the remnants of previous challenges, broken weapons, shattered armor, and worse things that the cleaning drones hadn't been able to completely remove. Above her, Zethkari's voice boomed through the amplification system. Behold the ancient judgment. Let the Devourer of Worlds test this champion's worth. Massive doors groaned open at the far end of the arena. The sound that emerged made every sapient being in the viewing platforms instinctively step back. It was a roar that seemed to originate from the planet's core itself, a sound that spoke to the deepest evolutionary fears of every species present. Then the Devourer appeared. It was larger than any of the historical records had suggested, standing nearly 50 meters tall when it reared up on its hind legs. Its hide was black as the void between stars, covered in scales the size of starship hull plates. 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows regarded the arena with ancient predatory intelligence, its mouth open to reveal rows of teeth like crystalline spears, each one longer than Maya was tall. But what struck the observers most was how wrong all their artistic depictions had been. This wasn't just a mindless monster. The devourer moved with purpose, its head turning to examine the viewing platforms with what could only be described as contempt. When it looked at Maya, however, something changed in its posture. Maya had set down her backpack and was staring up at the creature with undisguised awe. While every instinct should have told her to run, flee, or at least cower, she instead took a step forward. "Hello," she said. Her voice shouldn't have carried across the vast arena, but the devourer's head tilted slightly as if it had heard. Its 6 eyes focused on her with laser intensity. "You're beautiful," Maya continued, her voice gaining strength. "I mean, you're absolutely terrifying, but you're also magnificent. Look at those adaptation patterns. Your sensory organs are positioned for maximum environmental awareness. Your muscle structure suggests you can move in multiple gravitational environments. And those scales, they're not just armor, are they? They're designed to absorb and redistribute energy." The devourer took a step closer, its massive claws gouging furrows in the arena floor. In the viewing platforms, several alien dignitaries were placing hurried bets on how quickly the girl would be devoured. The longest estimate was 30 seconds. Maya pulled a device from her backpack, a simple scanner the kind students used for basic field research. "I hope you don't mind, but I'd love to take some readings. Purely for academic purposes. I promise it won't hurt." She activated the scanner and its soft blue light played across the devourer's hide. The creature's reaction was immediate and shocking. Instead of crushing her for her presumption, it lowered its massive head to give the scanner better access to its sensory organs. "Incredible," Maya whispered, reading the device's display. "Your neural pathways are far more complex than any terrestrial creature. You're not just intelligent, you're brilliant. But you're also lonely, aren't you?" The word seemed to hang in the air. The devourer's 6 eyes blinked in what might have been surprise. Maya approached closer, her scanner still active. "How long have you been here?" The council records go back 10,000 years, but some of these scars look much older. "You've been trapped in this place for a very long time." She gestured to the arena walls. "This isn't your natural habitat. The energy readings suggest you evolved in a much different environment. Somewhere with variable gravity, multiple star sources, probably a gas giant's moon system. You're not a monster at all, you're a refugee." In the viewing platforms, confused murmuring broke out among the assembled aliens. This wasn't how the ancient judgment was supposed to proceed. Champions were supposed to fight, to display their species' martial prowess before inevitably falling to the devourer's might. "The food they give you," Maya continued, consulting her scanner. "It's not right for your nutritional needs, is it? Your metabolic readings suggest you're slowly starving. Not physically, they keep you alive, but nutritionally. You need specific minerals, particular energy frequencies." The devourer lowered its head further, bringing one massive eye level with Maya. She reached out slowly and placed her hand against the scales just below the eye. The contact sent a visible shudder through the creature's enormous body. "I'm sorry," Maya said softly. "I'm sorry they've kept you here for so long. I'm sorry they've used you as their weapon of fear. I'm sorry nobody ever bothered to understand what you really are." Zethkari's voice crackled through the arena speakers. "What is she doing?" "Attack, human! Prove your worth!" Maya looked up at the viewing platforms, her hand still resting against the devourer's scales. "Oh, I think I'm proving exactly what I need to prove. See, you made one crucial mistake about humans, Ambassador Zethkari. You assumed we'd send our greatest warrior, but we didn't need to." She turned back to the devourer, whose 6 eyes were now fixed on her with an intensity that made the air itself seem to vibrate. "Because humans don't just make great warriors. We make great friends, and sometimes that's much more powerful." The devourer's response was immediate and decisive. It reared back on its hind legs and released a roar that shook the entire station. But this wasn't the hunting cry they'd heard before. This was something else entirely. A sound of joy, of recognition, of awakening after eons of dormancy. Then it did something that froze every alien in the viewing platforms with terror. It turned its attention from Maya to them, and its 6 eyes burned with an intelligence that had been planning revenge for thousands of years. "I think," Maya said conversationally, "you'd like to have a little chat with the council about your working conditions." The viewing platforms erupted into chaos as the assembled aliens finally understood what the humans had really done. They hadn't sent a champion to be devoured. They'd sent a liberator. The massive chamber echoed with the harmonious clicks and whistles of a dozen alien species as they deliberated humanity's fate. Ambassador Zethkari's 6 eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he gestured toward the holographic display showing Earth's blue marble suspended in space. "The humans have violated 3 separate trade agreements," he announced, his translator device converting his serpentine hisses into universal standard. "Their expansion into the Kepler sector was unauthorized. Their mining operations have disrupted established territorial boundaries. Most egregiously, they refuse to acknowledge our authority." Counselor Vexthon, a towering crystalline being whose faceted body reflected the chamber's bioluminescent lighting, resonated with agreement. "The young species always believe they are exceptional. They must learn their place in the galactic hierarchy." The other council members nodded, chittered, or expressed their consent in whatever manner their biology allowed. The Galactic Council had maintained order for over 10,000 years through a careful balance of diplomacy, trade regulation, and when necessary, calculated demonstrations of power. "What do you propose?" asked Counselor Mirren, her feathered crest rising with interest. Her species, the Aviani, had themselves been subjected to the Council's justice millennia ago and had emerged as loyal members. Zethkari's smile revealed rows of needle-sharp teeth. "We invoke the ancient judgment. Let them offer a sacrifice to the devourer of worlds, as all species have done before them. When their champion fails, they will understand their insignificance. The devourer of worlds." Even speaking the name caused several council members to shift uncomfortably. The creature had been the council's ultimate deterrent for generations, a massive, primordial beast that had never failed to destroy whatever sacrifice was offered to it. No technology, no warrior, no champion from any species had ever survived an encounter with the devourer. "The humans will send their finest warrior," Vexthon observed, his crystalline form pulsing with anticipation. "Their strongest, most technologically enhanced soldier. And when the devourer tears them apart, their entire species will witness their helplessness." The vote was unanimous. 3 days later, the human delegation arrived at Council Station Omega. The massive space station orbited a dead star, its dark metal surfaces absorbing what little light reached it from distant suns. The humans came in a modest vessel, nothing like the grand flagships other species brought to demonstrate their power. Ambassador Sarah Chen stepped off the transport, followed by a small diplomatic team. The aliens had expected humanity to send their most imposing representative, perhaps one of their enhanced super soldiers or cybernetically augmented warriors. Instead, they saw a woman of average height with graying hair and tired eyes who looked more like a schoolteacher than a galactic diplomat. "We've reviewed your terms," Chen said as she faced the assembled council. Her voice carried across the chamber without amplification, steady and calm. "We understand the ancient judgment. We will provide a champion." Zethkari leaned forward, his serpentine neck stretching with anticipation. "Send us your greatest warrior, human. Let them prove your species' worth against the devourer." Chen's expression didn't change. "We've made our choice. Her name is Maya Rodriguez. She's 17 years old." The chamber fell silent. Even the constant background hum of life support systems seemed to pause. Counselor Mirren's feathers ruffled with confusion. 17. That is barely adult by your species standards, is it not? "She just finished her secondary education," Chen confirmed. "She wants to study xenobiology at the university." Zethkari's eyes narrowed to slits. "This is an insult. You mock the ancient judgment by sending a child. Send us a real champion, or we will consider this a forfeit." "Maya volunteered," Chen replied simply. "She meets all the stated requirements. She's human, she's willing, and she's old enough to make her own decisions according to our laws. Unless you're adding new conditions to an ancient ritual?" The council members exchanged glances. The ancient judgment's terms had been established for millennia. Any sapient being offered voluntarily by their species could serve as champion. Age, size, and combat ability had never been specified, because no one had ever been foolish enough to send anyone other than their absolute best. Very well, Sethkari hissed, though his satisfaction had curdled into annoyance. But when this Maya Rodriguez is devoured, your entire species will bear the consequences of your poor judgment. Maya herself arrived the next morning. The aliens had prepared themselves for many possibilities: a hidden weapon, secret armor, genetic modifications that made her appear younger than she was. Instead, they found exactly what they'd been told: a teenage girl with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing basic civilian clothes and carrying nothing but a small backpack. She looked around the chamber with bright, curious eyes, taking in each alien species with obvious fascination rather than fear. When she spotted Counselor Mirren, her face lit up with excitement. "Oh wow, you're Aviani, right? I wrote my final thesis on comparative evolutionary development in avian-descended sapients. Your species' adaptation to your homeworld's variable gravity is absolutely fascinating." Mirren's feathers fluffed with surprise. No sacrifice had ever shown interest in academic discussion before. Maya continued her observations as she was led through the station, asking questions about architecture, biology, and culture with the enthusiasm of someone visiting a museum rather than walking to her doom. The alien guards found themselves answering despite their better judgment. "The Devourer," one of them finally said. "You know what awaits you, yes?" Maya nodded seriously. "A massive predator that's never been defeated. I've read all the historical accounts your people made available. It's described as being somewhere between a traditional earth dragon and what we'd call a kaiju. Those are giant monsters from our entertainment media. And you are not afraid?" Maya considered the question carefully. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "But fear and fascination aren't mutually exclusive. From an evolutionary perspective, the Devourer must be an incredibly successful apex predator. I've been wondering about its cognitive capacity, its social structure, its method of sensory input processing." The guard stared at her, mandibles clicking with confusion. "You speak of it as a research subject." "Everything's a research subject if you approach it with the right mindset," Maya replied with a smile that somehow made her look even younger. "Besides, if I'm going to die, I might as well learn something interesting first." As the time for the ancient judgment approached, the Galactic Council prepared their recording equipment. The destruction of the human champion would be broadcast across known space, serving as a reminder to any species that might consider defying Council authority. They had no idea that they were about to witness something that would change the balance of galactic power forever.